The sky over Tokyo on August 15, 1945 was heavy with uncertainty. The world was holding its breath, waiting for the next moment, unsure if peace would finally settle over a war-torn land. World War II was supposed to be over, but for some, the war was not finished. The official announcements had not yet reached every corner, and confusion lingered in the air like the thick summer humidity. American warplanes from the USS Yorktown soared above the Japanese coast, expecting peace but flying into the last forgotten battle. These pilots, trained for combat, found themselves in a world where the lines between war and peace were dangerously blurred. This is the story of that final fight, one of bravery, confusion, and ultimate sacrifice. It is a tale shaped by the chaos of transition, where orders and reality collided in the skies. 4 young American pilots would not see the war's end with celebration, but in a tragic dogfight after surrender. Their fate was sealed not by the enemy, but by the cruel timing of history itself. Their story is a small, powerful chapter in World War II's vast history. It is a reminder that even the smallest moments can carry the weight of the entire conflict. Even when peace is declared, the echoes of war can still claim lives. The transition from war to peace is never instant, and the cost can be heartbreakingly high. The pilots of Air Group 88 were skilled but exhausted by months of combat. Their faces showed the strain of endless missions, their eyes reflecting both hope and fatigue. The end was near. News of Japan's surrender brought hope, but orders were still orders. For these men, the promise of home was so close, yet still out of reach. Until the final command to stand down, they had a job to do. Protect the fleet, continue patrols. Every mission could be their last, and discipline demanded they see it through. This sense of duty pushed them into the sky one last time, into a history often overlooked. Their courage was quiet, but no less real than the heroes of earlier battles. History is made not just by big events, but by personal stories like this. The letters they wrote, the hopes they carried, and the families they left behind are all part of the legacy. The last dogfight is about individuals caught in the blurred line between war and peace. In those final moments, their actions spoke louder than any headline or official report. For these men, the consequences were devastating. Their sacrifice was not just a statistic, but a deeply personal loss felt by families and comrades alike. Their sacrifice is the final poignant act in a long and brutal war. This is their story, a story of duty, loss, and the enduring cost of conflict. Aboard the USS Yorktown, Air Group 88 prepared for what should have been a routine mission. The mood was tense but focused, as the crew went through their well-practiced motions, unaware that history was about to shift beneath their feet. F-6F Hellcats stood ready for a fighter sweep over Tokyo, attack enemy airfields, destroy any Japanese aircraft. The pilots knew the risks, but after so many missions, this felt like just another day in the long, grinding war. At 4:15 a.m., engines roared to life. Pilots climbed into cockpits, focused on their orders. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a pale light over the deck as the men steeled themselves for what lay ahead. They didn't know peace was being announced thousands of miles away. In distant capitals, diplomats and leaders were preparing for a new world. But on the carrier, the war was still very real. As they neared Japan, the world was changing. Emperor Hirohito had recorded his surrender message, but the news traveled slowly. The fate of nations was shifting, yet for those in the air, nothing had changed. For the pilots, the war was still alive. Every second in the cockpit was a reminder that danger could come at any moment. Suddenly their radios crackled. Japanese planes spotted, climbing to attack. The tension spiked instantly, as the Americans realized this would be no ordinary mission. The final mission had become the final battle. The sky above Japan was about to witness one last, desperate clash. The Japanese pilots from the elite 302nd Naval Air Group flew Zeros and Raidens, unaware of or ignoring the surrender. For them, the call to defend their homeland was all that mattered. For them, it was a last chance to defend their homeland. The sense of duty and honor outweighed any rumors of peace. The Americans, expecting routine, were thrown into a desperate fight for survival. In seconds, the mission had turned from routine to life or death. The promise of peace vanished, replaced by deadly aerial combat. The sky erupted with gunfire, smoke, and the roar of engines. The last dogfight of World War II had begun. Each pilot knew that every maneuver could be their last. Orders and reality collided in the sky. Confusion reigned as some tried to relay the news of surrender, but the chaos of battle drowned out any hope of clarity. The war's end was near, but for these men it was still a matter of life and death. Every second counted, and every decision could mean survival or tragedy. Their fate would be decided in the next few minutes. In those final moments, the outcome of the war was no longer in the hands of generals or politicians, but in the courage and skill of the men in the sky. The 4 men lost in this final mission were more than just pilots. They were sons, brothers, husbands, and friends. Each carried with them the hopes and dreams of families waiting anxiously back home, and the weight of a nation at war. Lieutenant Billy Hobbs of Mississippi, a quiet, determined Hellcat pilot, dreamed of peace but met tragedy in the war's last moments. He was known for his steady resolve and the letters he wrote home, filled with longing for a future beyond the conflict. Ensign Eugene Mandeberg from Chicago, a gunner in a Helldiver, was known for his humor and steady hand. His laughter often lifted the spirits of his crew, and his quick thinking saved lives more than once. Ensign Howard "Howdy" Harrison of Kansas, a sharp-eyed Avenger gunner, was part of a close-knit crew. His friends described him as fiercely loyal, always ready to help a fellow airman in need. Ensign Joseph Saloff from Michigan, another Avenger gunner, had trained for months, hoping to return home. He carried a photograph of his family in his flight jacket, a constant reminder of what he was fighting for. Each man faced the same risk that day, regardless of their role. The dangers of the skies were ever present, and every mission could be their last. The gunners, often overlooked, sat exposed, defending their crews with courage. Their positions were perilous, yet they never hesitated to protect their fellow airmen. Their loss highlights the collaborative nature of aerial warfare. Success depended on trust, teamwork, and the unspoken bond between men who relied on each other for survival. These men were bound by duty and trust in one another. Their friendships were forged in the crucible of war, unbreakable even in the face of danger. The news of surrender must have filled them with hope. For a brief moment they may have imagined returning home, reuniting with loved ones, and leaving the horrors of war behind. Instead, they found themselves in chaos. The sudden shift from hope to alarm was a cruel twist of fate, as the final mission called them back into harm's way. Their fates were tied to their pilots and their aircraft. Each man depended on the skill and bravery of the others, united by a shared sense of purpose. They fought bravely to the very end, displaying valor and determination even as the war drew to a close. Their sacrifice is a testament to the courage of all who served. We remember them not just as warriors, but as individuals whose lives and dreams were cut short in service to something greater than themselves. When the Japanese Zeros attacked, the Americans reacted instantly. The sky filled with enemy aircraft, chaos erupted. The Thach Weave, a crisscross maneuver, was their best defense, turning one-on-one fights into two-on-one advantages. Hellcat pilots instinctively formed up, executing this life-saving dance. Trust in their wingmen was everything. One mistake could be fatal. The sky became a web of twisting flight paths, engines roaring, guns rattling. Despite their skill, the Americans were outnumbered and under fierce attack. The bombers they protected were slower, more vulnerable. The Hellcats fought to shield them, but the odds were grim. In this violent struggle, 4 Americans were lost, the final casualties of a war already over. The Thach Weave saved many, but not all. The last ballet of propeller-driven fighters played out in tragedy. The battle lasted just 15 minutes, short, but brutally intense. Air Group 88 faced more than a dozen skilled Japanese fighters. Lieutenant Hobbs led his division into the fight, last seen chasing a Zero into a cloud, never to return. The bombers, with gunners like Mandeberg, Harrison, and Saloff, were prime targets, slower, less agile, relying on Hellcat protection. Gunners fired desperately from exposed positions as Zeros attacked. 3 bombers were shot down, their crews lost. When the sky cleared, 4 American planes were gone. The Americans shot down several attackers, but victory felt hollow. Survivors regrouped, carrying the weight of lost comrades. They had fought and lost friends in the very last battle of World War II. The cost of the brief, furious fight was painfully clear. The tragedy of this final dogfight was rooted in timing and miscommunication. While Air Group 88 fought for their lives, the war had technically ended. Emperor Hirohito's surrender broadcast reached Japan at noon, but the message traveled slowly. Communication breakdowns and hardline officers resisting surrender meant not everyone got the order. Some Japanese units kept fighting, either unaware or unwilling to stop. The U.S. fleet had orders to cease fire unless attacked. When Japanese planes rose to meet Air Group 88, the Americans defended themselves as ordered. The gap between political peace and battlefield reality proved fatal. 4 Americans died in that gap, caught between war and peace. If the surrender message had arrived hours earlier, they might have survived. Their deaths were a needless, tragic consequence of war's chaos. Timing, not intent, sealed their fate. The last dogfight of World War II quickly faded from memory. It happened as the world celebrated peace. Headlines focused on surrender, not tragedy. Mistaken identity and scattered records meant the story was overlooked for years. The deaths of 4 airmen were lost in the rush to demobilize and celebrate. The truth complicated the clean narrative of war's end, men dying after peace was declared. It was easier to remember the celebrations than the chaos. Only dedicated historians uncovered the real story. The last dogfight reminds us that history is often messy, and the cost of war lingers even after the fighting stops. The dogfight over Tokyo marked the end of an era, propeller-driven fighters' final clash in a global war. Soon, the jet age would change air combat forever. The battle's legacy is a lesson in the need for clear communication. Lives lost because orders weren't fully received. Even with modern technology, the fog of war remains. The pilot's unwavering duty, even as peace neared, is a testament to their character. Their sacrifice honors all who served in the Pacific. Remembering this forgotten battle pays tribute to the 4 men lost at the war's end. Their story adds depth to our understanding of World War II. The end of war was not a single moment, but a process still filled with danger and sorrow. History often focuses on big events, but the last dogfight asks us to remember individuals. Billy Hobbs, Eugene Mandiberg, Howard Harrison, Joseph Saloff. Their deaths, after surrender was announced, highlight the cruel randomness of war. Remembering their story is an act of respect, not just curiosity. The end of World War II was messy, filled with confusion and uncertainty. Air Group 88's story shows the human element, bravery, fear, and duty in the cockpit. Even in the final moments, the duty to protect one another remained. Their courage in chaos is an enduring inspiration. The forgotten last dogfight is a tribute to sacrifice, a reminder that freedom is not free. Their story is the final, tragic echo of a world at war. Their names deserve to be remembered as the closing chapter of aerial combat in the greatest war the world has ever known.